The Mac Mini is a small form-factor desktop computer manufactured by Apple Incorporated. Like earlier mini-ITX PC designs, it is 7.7 inches square and 1.4 inches tall. It weighs 2.7 pounds. Before the mid-2011 revision, all models, except the late 2009 and 2010 server models, came with an internal optical disk drive. Models pre-2010 used an external power supply and were narrower but taller at 2.0 AA, A6.5 AA, A6.5 inches. The Mac Mini is one of 3 desktop computers in the current Macintosh lineup, the other 2 being the iMac and Mac Pro, although it generally uses components usually featured in laptops, hence its small size. The Mac Mini was the first consumer-level Macintosh desktop to ship without a display, keyboard, or mouse since the Apple's success following the release of the iMac, with Apple marketing it as BYODKM. The primary intended market for the Mac Mini was users switching from a traditional Windows PC to a Mac who might already own a compatible display, keyboard and mouse, although these could be easily purchased if needed. A special server version of the computer is also intended for use as a server in a small network, and starting with the mid-2010 revision, all server models have included the server edition of the OS X operating system. The updated unibody Mac Mini is notable as Apple's first computer to include an HDMI video port to connect to a television or other display, more readily positioning the unit as a home theater device alternative to the Apple TV. Overview: a small form-factor computer had been widely speculated and requested long before the release of the Mac Mini. Rumors predicted that the headless iMac would be extremely small, include no display, and would be positioned as Apple's entry-level desktop computer. On January 10, 2005, the Mac Mini was announced alongside the iPod Shuffle at the Macworld Conference and Expo and was described by Apple CEO Steve Jobs at the time as the cheapest, most affordable Mac ever. The Mac Mini is an entry-level computer intended for budget-minded customers. Until the 2011 release, the Mac Mini had much less processing power than the other computers of the Macintosh lineup. Unlike regular desktop computers, which use standard-sized components such as 3.5-inch hard drives, Apple uses lower-power laptop components in the Mac Mini to fit all the necessary components into the small case and to prevent overheating, common in such compact spaces. Previously, with the choice of components on the older models, the machine was considered somewhat slower than standard desktop computers. It also had less storage and memory than comparable desktops. However, the 2011 upgrade addressed many of these previous complaints. In general, the Mac Mini has been praised as a relatively affordable computer with a solid range of features. However, the press also agrees that it is relatively high-priced for a computer aimed at the lower segment of the market. It is possible to buy small form-factor computers at the same price with faster processors, better graphics card, more memory, and/or more storage. The small form factor has made the Mac Mini particularly popular as a home theater solution. In addition, the small size and observed reliability has helped keep resale values high. On October 22, 2009, Apple introduced a new server version of the Mac Mini along with revisions of the computer. This model lacks an optical drive, but contains a second hard drive in its place. This version is marketed as an affordable server for small businesses and schools. A new model of the Mini was introduced on June 15, 2010. The new model was thinner, with a unibody aluminum case designed to be easily opened for RAM access, and incorporated upgraded hardware, such as an HDMI port and NVIDIA GeForce 320M graphics. An update announced July 20, 2011 dropped the internal CD-DVD optical drive from all versions and introduced a Thunderbolt port, Intel Core i5 processor, and either Intel HD Graphics 3000 integrated graphics or AMD Radeon HD 6630M dedicated graphics. The server model was upgraded to a quad-core Intel Core i7 processor. Quad-core i7 CPUs are also used in the late 2012 desktop Mac Mini computers. Design. The most notable feature of the Mac Mini is its size. The original design measured only 2.0 AA, A6.5 AA, A6.5 inches. The exterior of the original Mac Mini was made of aluminum capped with polycarbonate plastic on the top and bottom. The original design had no visible screws and was not meant to be upgraded by the user. The back of the machine contains the I/O ports and vents for the cooling system. It had an external power supply. The Mac Mini, updated on June 15, 2010, was fully redesigned, being slimmer than the prior models at only 1.4 inches tall, but wider at 7.7 inches a side. The weight rose from 2.9 pounds to 3 pounds. The power supply is now internal as opposed to external. The chassis no longer has the polycarbonate plastic on the top or bottom. The newer model, introduced July 20, 2011, has the same physical dimensions but is slightly lighter, at 2.7 pounds, presumably because it lacks an internal CD/DVD drive. The current Mac Mini is designed to be opened using a round cover on the bottom of the computer. Prior versions of the Mini were much more difficult to open. Some Mac Mini owners used a putty knife or a pizza cutter to pry open the cases of older Mini models to gain access to the interior for installation of cheaper third-party memory upgrades. The official Apple Service Source Manual for Mac Mini describes this procedure in detail, including an official Apple part number for a modified putty knife. It's also possible to use wires to pull the white plastic bottom case out of the metal top case. While opening the case does not actually void the Mac Mini warranty, anything broken while the case is open is not covered. Other modifications include hard disk upgrades, overclocking the processor, and upgrading the wireless networking to 802.11n. The 2009 model can have its super drive replaced with a second SATA hard drive. The removal of the optical drive in the 2011 models leaves internal space for a second internal hard drive or SSD, which can be ordered as a BTO option from Apple, or as an upgrade kit from third-party suppliers. With the switch to the Intel Core Solo and Duo line, Apple initially used a socketed CPU in the Mac Mini that allowed the processor to be replaced. They switched to a non-socketed CPU with the 2009 model that did not allow an easy upgrade. With the June 2010 revision, the case can be readily opened to add RAM. Home theater, the Mac Mini can be used for home cinema applications. The small footprint, multi-format video output, digital audio output, remote control IR receiver and the relatively powerful Intel CPUs make it easy to use the Mac Mini as part of a home entertainment system. It can be classified as a home theater PC with some limits. The Mac Mini does not include an integrated TV tuner card and cannot be upgraded to install one internally. Accessing TV requires external devices like Elgato's iTV USB adapter or Silicon Dust's HDHOME Run Network TV tuner, which will encode and manage broadcast television from a cable or satellite receiver. The July 2011 model lacks a built-in CD/DVD player and OS X Lion no longer supports front-row remote control software. Pre-2009 Mac Mini models had a video connector which was compatible with DVI, HDMI, SVGA, S-Video and composite video with the appropriate adapter. Sound is provided by a combination jack that uses both mini-RCA and optical fiber cables. Unlike the Apple TV, the Mac Mini is backward compatible with televisions that have only composite or S-Video inputs. As of the July 2011 revision of the Mac Mini, the computer sports an Intel HD 3000 graphics processor with an optional Radeon graphics processing unit available and Thunderbolt, which makes decoding high-resolution video much quicker and efficient. The addition of an HDMI port simplifies connecting the Mini to high-definition televisions and home theater AV receivers. Because of the similar small form factor, HDMI port, remote control IR receiver, and media browser interface, some users see the Mac Mini as an Apple TV alternative. It has both iTunes for media rental, purchase, and management, and a native user interface with Front Row, based on the user interface of the original Apple TV. The Apple TV is limited to video in the MP4 format, whereas Mac Mini users employing the appropriate QuickTime codecs can watch other video formats like DivX, XVID, and the Matroska container, or almost all other formats using an open-source player such as VLC, without resorting to hacks. The current Intel models of Mac mini can display video via the HDMI port at a maximum resolution of 1080p and up to 2560x1600 via the mini display port with a compatible monitor. The Mac mini can also run third-party front-end media player applications for Mac OS X, such as Plex or XBMC, to be used as a home theater PC. Mac mini G4, the specifications below are from Apple's tech specs page, except where noted. Processors: the Mac mini G4 uses single-core 32-bit PowerPC processors that have 512 KB of on-chip L2 cache. The processor accesses memory through the front-side bus, which is clocked at 167 MHz. The chips in these models of Mac mini run at 1.25, 1.33, 1.42, or 1.5 GHz. The computer supports an ATI Radeon 9200 graphics processor with 32 MB of DDR/SDRAM standard. The high-end model of the last revision comes with 64 MB of video memory instead. Memory: the Mac mini G4 uses 333 MHz DDR/SDRAM, allows a maximum of 1 GB of memory, and has only one desktop DIMM slot for random access memory. This restricts both the maximum amount of available memory, which can greatly reduce performance by forcing the system to page to the hard disk, and, since the system is unable to take advantage of dual channels, maximum bandwidth. This issue was addressed in the Intel models of Mac mini by using two notebook DIMM slots. Storage: the Mac mini G4 uses a single 2.5-inch Ultra ATA/100 hard drive, which offers a maximum transfer rate of 100 MB per second. Because of his sealed enclosure, it is not possible to upgrade the hard drive without opening the enclosure and possibly voiding the warranty of the system. The Mac mini G4 also contains a second ATA cable that connects to the optical drive. A combo drive was included as standard, while a super drive able to write to DVDs was also an option. External connectivity: the original Mac mini includes two USB 2.0 and one FireWire 400 port. Networking is supported with 10/100 Ethernet and V92 modem ports, while 802.11bg and Bluetooth were additional build-to-order options. The modem was later omitted from the Mac mini, but an external modem remained an option. External displays are supported via a DVI port. Adapters are also available for VGA, S-video, and composite video. The system contains a built-in speaker and an analog 1/8-inch stereo mini jack for sound out at the back of the case. In the last revision of the Mac mini G4, the internal mezzanine board was upgraded to accommodate the airport Wi-Fi and Bluetooth technology onto one chip. In prior models, the Mac mini included an Airport Extreme card taped to the mezzanine board and a separate Bluetooth module. This new Wi-Fi card also no longer uses an MMCX female connector for the antenna but rather a proprietary Apple I. Specifications, notes: 1. The serial number and specification sticker on the underside of the latest revision do not carry the actual specs of the upgrade. For example, on a 1.5 GHz model, 1.42 GHz is listed. The product packaging also did not reflect the upgrade. Apple did not revise the official specifications on their website. Alternative operating systems: the Mac mini G4 can run different operating systems designed for the PowerPC architecture. For example, users can easily install the Amiga OS-compatible MorphOS, or Linux distributions such as Debian or Ubuntu. Support for pre-OS X Mac applications: unlike the Intel models, a G4 Mac mini running Mac OS X 10.4 can run Mac OS 9 classic applications, so long as a bootable copy of the OS 9 system folder is installed from which to run the classic environment. As of Mac OS X 10.5, the ability to run the classic environment was removed. Intel-based Mac mini: the specifications below are from Apple's tech specs page, except where noted. Processors: the current non-server Mac mini is available in two versions, one with a mobile dual-core 64-bit Intel Core i5 processor that runs a 2.5 GHz and one with a choice of a mobile quad-core Intel Core i7 2.3 GHz or a quad-core Core i7 2.6 GHz. The server model has a choice of the same processors as the faster non-server model. The CPU in the slower non-server model has a 3 MB on-chip L3 cache, and the CPUs available for the faster non-server model and the server model have a 6 MB on-chip L3 cache. The cache is shared between the cores and GPU. Prior revisions used a Penryn Intel Core 2 Duo processor, Merom-based Core 2 Duo and Uno-based Core Duo and Solo chips. The 2006 and 2007 Mac Minis that come standard with a 32-bit Intel Core Duo processor can be changed to an Intel 64-bit Core 2 Duo processor through a simple upgrade. Since the 2006 and 2007 Merom-based Mac Minis came with socketed processors, the 32-bit processor can easily be removed, and replaced with a compatible 64-bit Intel Core 2 Duo processor. The following processors are compatible: 2.00 GHz Intel T7200 SL9SF, 2.16 GHz Intel T7400 SL9SE, 2.33 GHz Intel T7600 SL9SD. The more recent 2009 and later Mac Minis have the processors soldered onto the logic board and thus are not upgradable. Once the 2006 Mac Mini has been upgraded to a 64-bit Core 2 Duo processor, and RAM is upgraded to at least 2 GB, it can run OS X Lion through a minor modification by editing or deleting the platform support list file. A 2007 Mac Mini will run OS X Lion without any modification. Many users have found that such upgrades can make the 2006/2007 Mac Mini's performance even better than the 2009 Mac Mini models. Geekbench scores have shown that the 2.33 GHz Core 2 Duo fitted Mac Mini with 2 GB of RAM has a score of 3060, whereas a late 2009 Mac Mini with 2 GB of RAM has 3056, making the two machines fairly comparable. While the Mac Mini G4 contained a separate graphics processor, all revisions of the Intel-based Mac Mini contain integrated GPUs, except in the 2011 version where the 2.5 GHz model contains a separate AMD Radeon GPU. In Apple's early marketing of the Mac Mini G4, it touted the superiority of the use of a discrete ATI Radeon 9232MB graphics card over the integrated graphics included in many budget PCs. The Intel GMA that was built into the Mac Mini was criticized for producing stuttering video, despite supporting hardware-accelerated H.264 video playback, and disappointing frame rates in graphics-intensive 3D games. Memory: unlike the Mac Mini G4, the Intel-based Mac Mini uses a dual-channel architecture for memory. The original Intel-based Mac Mini uses 667 MHz DDR2 SDRAM, while models starting with the early 2009 revision used 1066 MHz DDR3 SDRAM. From the 2011 revision, the Mac Mini supports up to 16 GB of memory. The current model also features a removable bottom panel, so that the memory can be replaced by the user. Since the integrated graphics processor does not have its own dedicated memory, the system shares some of the main system memory with it. Storage: the Intel-based Mac Mini moves away from the formerly used Ultra ATA/100 to the newer Serial ATA interface, which offers a maximum 3 Gbps transfer rate. However, all models of Intel Mac Mini have been limited to 1.5 Gbps, even though the SATA standard supports a transfer of 3 Gbps. All models continue to use 2.5-inch hard drives as opposed to the 3.5-inch drives used in standard desktops. A server edition of the Mac Mini was introduced in October 2009, which omits the optical drive in favor of a second hard drive for a total of 1 TB of storage. A combo drive was initially offered as standard, with the Super Drive being an option, but through the 2010 models, all models that have an optical drive contain the Super Drive as standard. The 2010 standard version of the Mac comes with a 300 GB or 2.66 GHz 500 GB of storage. External connectivity: The original Intel-based Mac Mini includes 4 USB 2.0 ports and 1 FireWire 400 port. Networking is supported with a built-in gigabit Ethernet port and an integrated 802.11bg AirPort card. Bluetooth was also made standard. External displays are supported through a DVI port. While the Mac Mini G4 supports only analog audio output, the Intel-based Mac Mini has separate mini Toslink/3.5mm mini jacks that support both analog audio input and output as well optical digital SPDIF input and output. The I/O ports were changed with the early 2009 revision. A fifth USB 2.0 port was added and the FireWire 400 port was replaced with a FireWire 800 port. The AirPort card was upgraded to 802.11 AG Draft N and later to 802.11 AG N. Bluetooth was also upgraded from 2.0 to 2.1. Instead of a single full-size DVI port, a mini DVI port was added along with a mini DisplayPort connection, which allows dual display support. Unlike the DVI port, the mini DisplayPort supports external displays with a resolution up to 2560x1600, which allows use of the 30-inch cinema display with the Mac Mini. As of this revision, the Apple Remote is no longer included with the Mac Mini. The Mac Mini 2009 model gave access to 3 different USB buses on the back. Port 2 shares a USB bus with the I/O connection. Ports 1+5 and 3+4 are each on their own USB bus. So it should be possible to get a throughput of 3 times 480 equals 1414 bits. Specifications: Unibody Mac Mini. Structure: starting from the mid-2010 revision, there is a removable panel on the bottom, enabling the user to upgrade the RAM. The new Mac Mini has an all-aluminium enclosure, called Unibody. The Unibody manufacturing process was originally developed for the MacBook Air and later also used in the MacBook and MacBook Pro before being introduced in the Mac Mini range. The built-in power supply negates the need for an external power supply brick used on prior models. There have been other changes in the 2011 revision. They include the elimination of the Kensington security slot, as well as the optical drive. While the fifth USB 2.0 port was also removed, this has given space for an SD card slot to be included on the back of the machine. Like the 2009 version, a mini DisplayPort is included. An HDMI port, which Apple describes as being HDMI 1.4 compliant, replaces the mini DVI port on the prior models as one of the main video connection methods. The HDMI port supports up to 1080p on HDMI connections and 8-channel 24-bit audio at 192 kHz, Dolby Surround 5.1 and stereo output. With the included HDMI to DVI adapter, for those currently using a DVI interface, the HDMI port will work with resolutions up to 1920x, 1200 pixels, while the mini DisplayPort can concurrently support up to a resolution up to 2560x. 1600 pixels. Specifications: Mac Mini Server. Apple has offered a server configuration of the Mac Mini. Originally, this model came preloaded with only an OS X server version of OS X, but later models instead came preloaded with the standard version of OS X, as well as a separate OS X server package, which included separate component apps. Later on, Apple released the OS X Server Packaged app as a single purchase from the Mac App Store, containing all the separate components apps, so that any model of Mac computer could download and use them. The mid-2010 server model was initially the only Mac Mini to entirely remove the optical drive, replacing it with a second hard drive in its place. However, from the mid-2011 models onwards, all models of Mac Mini had the optical drive removed. From November 5, 2010, the server model of Mac Mini has been the replacement for Apple's Sublime, which was discontinued on January 31, 2011. See also: Apple TV, Acer Aspire Evo, ASUS Box, Dell Studio Hybrid, Dell Inspiron 400, MSI Wind PC, Small Form Factor, Netop, Notes. References. External links. Media related to Mac Mini at Wikimedia Commons, Mac Mini a Euro official site, Mac Mini Server Official site.